And someone isn't on mute, so if you're hearing this, if you could mute yourself. Oh, we're in 29, so.
I was going to say, looks like everybody's on mute.
I just heard some background noise. It might have been me.
It could be Troy. He's on the phone. Hopefully it's not too much noise from the office that you guys can hear.
Yeah.
It's all good?
If the crowd gets noisy, then we'll rip into it. Cool. So, what's that? 29? Close enough. So, welcome to episode 2, guys. Thanks for joining us again. Thanks for your attention. What we're going to flick through today, so gone 30, some news, and as we were sort of like saying pre-recording, there is a whole lot of stuff which sort of like just dropped, so we'll cover that off, and then I'll leap into my business opportunity with Defender for Business. So some announcements there in the news piece, but we'll also cover that more from a sales perspective. We're not going to deep dive technical on Defender for Business or Defender for Endpoint, because we've done that previously, and then we'll finish off with prizes and Q&A. So just a couple of bits of news, and our friends at marketing at Microsoft decided that they needed to change names yet again. So there is a ton of name changes, mainly all around the Compliance Center. So everything has gone to Microsoft and then added Purview at the end of it, if you like. So there's the current names and the new names there. You can look over there at your leisure. There is a lot of links in a slide deck today. So post-call, I'll copy that to a OneDrive SharePoint where I can share that externally, and I'll drop it into the link into the chat, so you can grab the slides and go through the links at your leisure. Our friends at the Office for the Privacy Commissioner, next week is going to be Privacy Week, and they've got a ton of events on. Unfortunately, most of these are in Wellington, so you have to attend in person, but first one off is Privacy 101 for Dhb staff. So that's relevant and topical. Privacy in 2022, what does good look like? There's also some stuff where PwC is talking about the first 72 hours after a cyber attack. A whole lot of stuff around privacy for charities, privacy for schools, cyber incident response best practice. A panel discussion with intergovernmental organisations and data protection, where privacy meets power, questions of data and racial inequality. A ton of them, but if you click on that slide there, it will take you through the registration page, and you can have a look and see what's relevant and get along to those. But what is really cool for me is that Microsoft didn't hold off and leave it for us, an exclusive for us. They announced it yesterday, just in time for us. I thought we had an agreement to say that we were going to announce it, but there's a standalone version of Microsoft Defender for Business, which is going to fit nicely with the slides coming up. So that is out as a standalone. So another reason that you can start positioning it against the Business Standard, Business Basic licenses, and look at upgrading them to Business Premium, where you get Defender for Business free, or charging them for it. Price for New Zealand is $4.50, and I think I just grabbed a piece from that from my tenant to bring it up. So that's on NCE. So, you know, what does Defender cover? And we'll go through some of the sales scenarios around that shortly. And I'll grab another mouthful of coffee and throw across to Rhonda.
Oh, thanks, Paul. All right, so I'm just taking control. Fantastic. All right, well, welcome to another week of Surface, everyone. We have a new price bar coming out today. So if you want to receive it, we'll drop the link in the chat or click on the price list link, good grief, on the slide. But remember, Surface is a closed channel, so you do need to become an approved reseller with us to receive it. Cool. Fantastic. Okay, now we did touch on this, I think, last week. We've still got promotions running. All you need to do is purchase either the Pro 7 Plus and you get a free privacy screen, or the Pro 8 and receive a double movie pass. So if you have any clients looking for amazing devices, get in touch with me or the team. My new blog is also live for May on Spotlight and Surface, the website that we talked about last week. So click on the link and have a read, guys. We have amazing stock levels. So if you have any opportunities that I can help with, or the team, let us know. And obviously, if you'd like to become a reseller with us, register your interest on the Spotlight on Surface link, or contact us directly. Click on the red circle to the link to the site. Thanks, Paul. He likes to add that to my slides. Fantastic.
The marketing piece of me coming out.
That's all right. All right, so this is hot off the press. We are launching today this brand new offer on the Laptop Studio. This is a fantastic giveaway, guys. So purchase the i5-16-256 Laptop Studio and get all these amazing accessories with it, valued over $500. So if you're interested, get in touch today. We've got just a few stocks, so prices will be limited. Fantastic. All right, back to you, Paul.
That studio, the Surface Studio, looks really cool for those high-end graphics guys, designers, and people in marketing. They should all have one.
Absolutely. Even anyone who likes to multitask. I mean, it's an amazing device. So it's definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so now on to the real stuff. Sorry, Rhonda. Business opportunity for Microsoft Defender for Business. This is much more where I'm comfortable rather than talking about devices. Although devices are part of the security piece of it. So this a slide with some stats. So Zach would love this sort of thing. We've always talked about how much security is top of mind for our customers, and a good partner is going to realize that and work with that customer to satisfy it. When you sort of like start throwing stats around like 300% ransomware increase, and I'm sure certain NZ and Office of the Privacy Commissioner are also going to sort of like talk about these sort of things. What I found really hard was having a conversation with a customer where you start throwing these numbers at them. New Zealand customers tend to bury their head in the sand, and the typical response is, it ain't going to happen to me, or I'll worry about it when it happens, or I don't have anything worth protecting. If they thought about that, of course they've got stuff worth protecting. Their customer lists, their invoicing, their work schedule, from telling people to back up so they could restore and get back to work quickly. We know that if you don't have a current backup that's tested, you're not going to get back to it. If you lose that, and if you lose everything, and that's the common thing with ransomware, if you've got a connected backup, an online backup, it's probably going to be encrypted as well. You don't have to be targeted. What happens is it's more collateral damage. If we look at some of the big attacks out there, they weren't targeting small business. They were just collateral damage to it. The ones that made the headlines are the big businesses, of course, and the DHBs, because that has a big impact. But if you're a small business owner, any impact is going to be huge for you. So, start having those conversations with them, and don't tell them that they're going to be targeted. Just tell them that they may be caught up in it unwittingly. It's all part of business continuity planning. And yeah, sure, reputation damage, but quantifying that in a risk analysis is difficult. So if you want to sort of like do a side part and sort of like go off and do some web searching for risk analysis for security, there's ways of actually quantifying that. Okay, so Defender for Business, how this is a little bit different to your standard AV, and everybody has an AV sitting on there, often a free one. If you look at small businesses, they think I'm not going to mention a brand name, but a free AV on their endpoint is their beginning and end of security. It's not. Security is more about platform, and you're going to hear Microsoft talking about the security platform more than the individual components of Microsoft Defender. But it's all about threat and vulnerability management. That's where I'm spending a lot of my time now, because we've basically locked down identities, and we're all using multi-factor authentication to log in. So our next vulnerability is going to be around those applications that have elevated roles within our tenants. How do we sort of do that? Reduce the risk on that. And on the slide deck that I've grabbed has got some good sort of layman's terms or examples of how we discuss threat and vulnerability management and attack surface reduction. Something you'll hear every AV vendor talk about is next generation protection. What is it? And what is EDR? Those of you that attended the SC 900 training will be familiar with the abbreviations that we use in the common language, but endpoint detection and response, what is it? And what is auto investigation and remediation? Why should we be doing it? All you partners also need a simplified way of onboarding the devices or the endpoints. And when I was talking to a partner, they said, what we do is basically we just send a link to our customers and they install it. Very hard to understand where the value add is from a partner that does that, and how customized or robust that security is if it's just downloaded from a link. You also need to be able to integrate these solutions into all the other things for threat detection and also for reporting and billing. So having APIs and the integration is also important. And that's where Defender for Business comes in. So you've had this in your business premium tenants for a while. Easiest way to double check that it's there is just to click on one of the active users, look at their licensing and apps, scroll down to their apps, and you'll see Defender for Business sitting in there. It's probably already onboarded. If you've previously had a endpoint solution in there, which is what we've been telling, a lot of our partners have been doing. They've been using what is now known as Defender for Endpoint P2, bundled into their security offering because it's all about solutions, not about products. You won't get the simplified onboarding administration console because you've probably already got some Intune policies to do the onboarding, or you've scripted doing that. If you're fresh out of the box and you haven't had an endpoint Defender for Endpoint solution in there, you'll be greeted by this, which does all the basic legwork for you. It enrolls the devices, it pushes out some basic security policies, which you can then customize, and gives you a dashboard. So let's say this is step 1, step 2. So you don't have to be a security professional or a Intune endpoint manager specialist to do this. It is something that one of your service engineers could do, or even the sales guys. So next generation protection, everybody rabbits on about this, and this really comes down to heuristics. And when I was selling against a Russian AV solution, everybody has allegiances to a certain brand. And when you're trying to sell Symantec against Kaspersky, I said the word, really hard, because all the techies loved Kaspersky because it was great heuristic based engines. There is some sort of like cloud over Kaspersky because of their Russian head office and their cooperation with Russian authorities. But what a next generation protection AV does is basically look at how a file behaves. and then blocks that malware or sort of suspicious activity happening on an endpoint. Also what's happening with the applications. Where we need to sort of like move a little bit further is looking at everything in our environment, and that's where threat and vulnerability management comes into it. So this is not just on the device, but on the whole network. What we can do is actually install a sensor onto a device that's part of the network and then scan out and find everything. On my home network, I'm using this and it pulls up all my IoT devices. I can't say her name, Alexa. Okay, yeah, she didn't go off. But even my HP switch, you may hear humming away in the background there. My cameras, everything in the house is pulled up on that, and it matches that against known vulnerabilities. Also tells me what I can onboard as far as Defender for Endpoint, what I can't, what their OS is running on those devices, where they're talking to. I can do a whole lot of stuff to remediate and make my environment a lot less vulnerable. So what is threat and vulnerability management? And this is the nice little slide that we sort of like talked about. We often equate security to buildings and saying, hey, look, identity is all about making sure that you lock your front door when you go out, and only authorized people can get in, and we double check that authorization. But if we think about our environment a little bit like a house, there are other vulnerabilities besides the front door in our environment. And in this case, somebody's ram raided the corner of this building. So what we need to do is do a bit of an inspection. So we call the building inspector and he says, hey, there's a vulnerability there. We know that. But while you're looking at that ram raid, let's go around and see if there's anything else. And you give us some recommendations on what we need to secure. So yeah, lock the back door, put locks on the windows, make sure that you change the keys on the front door. So that is what a threat and vulnerability management is going to do in your environment. It's going to look at that by saying these are the risks, this is where you need to apply the patches. And if we think about some of the data leaks that have happened in New Zealand, the high profile ones that's been around unpatched applications in their environment. Attack surface reduction. So we used to call this surface hardening when we were dealing with on-premise servers. So there was a checklist of stuff that we had to do to harden our Windows servers. Same with devices, the endpoint devices. And it was, okay, what applications have we got running here? What ports do we need to leave open for this? So it was highly customized, but now we can automate it with everything being in the cloud. So once again, it's basically, we've got the recommendations of changing those keys and locking the doors. What can we do? I'll see if I can remember how we do this. So we locked all the doors and only authorized users have access. That slide didn't build up the way that I envisaged it to. Endpoint detection and response, or EDR, for those that love the abbreviation. Behavior-based detection, and then manual response to those. So if we look at that, it is more post-breach. So we've taken all the advice and we've also put some monitoring there. So if you remember back to our principles of zero trust, is it assume breach? How do we assume breach if we're not monitoring? So we need to be constantly looking at it in real time and seeing what's going on. So in physical case, we've installed cameras. Then we have a bad guy comes along, sees the window's locked, so he just smashes the window, gets in. So we need to start recording what's going on, gaining evidence or saving logs, which is more around the threat hunting piece, going back and seeing how this attack occurred, what we can do to prevent it, and how we can reduce any sort of like loss. So in this case, the alarm goes off. We know that the attacker has gained access into our tenant, either through a vulnerability that we didn't have patched or a zero-day exploit, and we automate. And we'll flick past that one. we automate, and this guy comes along, the police throw him in chains, cart him off, or evict him from our house or tenant is what we want to be doing. We don't want them to be able to establish any persistence within their house and find a way of getting back in, having a hidden door, which was about. So where does this present an opportunity for you to talk to your customers? And there is a ton of resources, and we'll flick them on there. Once again, stats. So those of you that haven't had a security conversation with your customers yet, I'd be really worried, because the Microsoft research says that 90% of customers are saying that they'll switch IT partners if they offered better security. So I know it's a competitive environment out there. If you aren't talking to your customers about security, all it's going to take is one of your competitors to be doing that. So let's go through a little bit on how to have that conversation. And you can see from the addressable market that 90% of SMBs are already paying for an endpoint security product. So this presents a great opportunity for us to start positioning Microsoft 365 Business Premium, which includes that, or saying as a fallback, let's look at Defender for Business as a standalone. I don't often get this question around how good is Microsoft security anymore, because it is, well, just do your research. And how do we sort of like, what are the scenarios that we can look at? So we sort of like talked about moving into Business Premium. So this should be just another reason why we should be talking to those business standard, business basic customers and saying, hey, look, Business Premium is going to give you so much more as far as productivity, security. It's a bundle. It's like going to McDonald's. At the moment, you're just buying the Big Mac. You're going to save yourself some money and get so much more if you go for the combo pack. And the combo pack that's built for small business is Business Premium. So it's got the leads, acquisition. So you've got an on-premise customer, and there's still a few of those around. And they're going to go, oh, well, cloud is risky. I'm much more secure having this on-premise thing in this house with the windows locked. Not true, but how do you convince them? Start leading them into the cloud security platform, and that way you can use the Defender for Business standalone, because you're going to be setting up a tenant with that and have central reporting across the whole environment. Just while we're on that, the server add-on is not available at the moment, so it's really just going to be for that really small business where they're using just a local work group or something like that. Obviously, next slide. Okay, managing all this, and the great thing about some of the other solutions is that you have a portal where you can manage just your security. So you jump into your ESET portal or your Semantic SEPM to push out and do all those bits and pieces. Microsoft provided free of charge for all our partners, Microsoft 365 Lighthouse. And if you haven't played with this yet, go for it. It's free. It's got total integration with Intune, although it's not reliant on Intune, and also with the Defender for Business, and it allows you to manage your customers at scale. So, you might have 100 customers now, 100 endpoints, over 10 customers. But you don't want to be like that forever. You want to keep growing, and you want to grow fast, but you don't have the resource to throw at this sort of thing. You can't just pull more technicians and engineers out of the blue. We're all stressed. We've got enough workload with hybrid working and all the demands day to day. This is a way of reducing that sort of demand and being able to scale Do some proactive stuff for your customers, and also reporting, which is really important. Being able to go back to your customer and say, hey, as your managed solution provider, we did this to protect you over the last month. This is what we need to do in the coming months, and have something that the sales guys can talk about on their quarterly business review and demonstrate your value. And you can standardize those configurations, not so much as the Microsoft standard. And I highly suggest that you tailor make these packages to be your own IP. And then you can push that out, and you can specialize in a financial vertical or health board vertical, and have standardized configurations that you push out to everybody in the health sector. Then you know where you're starting from, and there is no gaps, and sort of like being able to say, oh, I forgot to do it for that tenant, because face it, engineers are terrible at documenting anything. Here you've got it all driving there. How do we have that difficult conversation and remember that 90% of our customers are thinking about this? So how do we bring it up? Have a look at your existing customers. Always look after the customers you've got. And within Partner Center, you've got the Cloud Ascent portal where you can drag down reports. So this, excuse me, this will show you if any of your customers, existing customers, have been on searching Microsoft for security. What did they look at? Those sort of things. So you can sort of like look at that and target some of your existing customers. If they're already looking for security, then they're open for you to pop in and say, hey, look, we have this new security solution available. Are we going to roll it out to you? It's not going to change your licensing costs, but it's going to reduce what you're currently paying for a separate third-party AV. And we'll go into this more of in the neural impact sessions coming up. So, if you haven't done that yet, I'll put the link up for enrolling or expression of interest in joining that neural impact. But knowing when to present your solution at the right time to your customers is really important. You could also run workshops, and Microsoft have a couple of canned ones, not particularly on security, but it is an important part of Business Premium. So they have all the slides, the decks, even the emails available to run these workshops. Totally scripted. They tend to be a bit longer than necessary for the New Zealand market, but we're all happy at Dhb Data to work with you if you want to pull a whole lot of customers together and do a customer workshop, and have us present on Surface and devices and security, modern work. Then just give us a bell, and we're happy to pop down, put the slides together, or even do it remotely. With the Microsoft ones, they do have an incentive in US dollars, but you need to get prior approval for it. They need to know who the customers are, what the opportunity is, and they seem to limit it to one customer at a time. Then at the end of it, as Rhonda and I know, you have to provide proof of execution without any personally identifiable information. So pictures of crowds attending your event or attendance lists on webinars, you can't send through because it's identifiable information, but that's just the joy of Microsoft. Handling objections. So you're always going to get objections, and this is great if you do. So the common one is, I already have an AV. Why do I need to invest in additional security? Simple. We're talking about your AV if it's a good one. I'll just build that slide out. This is a good way to think about it. An AV is about pre-execution. It blocks something before it happens. If it gets past that AV, or that AV is turned off because your systems have been compromised, you really need a second defense, and that's where an EDR solution comes into it. And that's looking at what's happening, not only file behavior, but also the human behind the keyboard, because an attacker that's gained credentials onto an endpoint is going to appear as somebody typing on a keyboard and using things like PowerShell or PSX or proc dump or something on there, which isn't going to be picked up by a pre-execution NGP. I love abbreviations. So the simple way is that, hey, look, the threat landscape has changed. You need to start thinking about security holistically. And Dickadata, we announced that we have acquired Hills Security in Australia and New Zealand, which is going to be the physical component of security. So how do you secure your building if you're in there, or your data center? So you can now start looking at being a physical security partner as well as an IT security partner through Dicker. So how do we compare against everybody else? And every vendor is going to trot out a Gartner chart or a IDC MarketScape in this case. What this really says to me is that it is a crowded space and you've got a ton of people in there pushing it. So every vendor is going to be saying, hey, our security is the best. But that is probably why Microsoft is now starting to talk about a security platform. It's not a separate thing that you should be looking at to bolt onto your productivity suite or your identity provider, Azure Active Directory in this case. It's all about integration, and Microsoft is everybody is using a Windows desktop. Well, some people are using Macs, but the infrastructure is basically Microsoft. And as we move more and more to the cloud, Microsoft security is going to be the major player, and obviously from that chart it already is, but I'm sure that CrowdStrike will trot out another one. CrowdStrike, great product as well, but their integration points across are not going to be as much as Microsoft can do. So we've sold you on Defender for Business, hopefully, or we've given it to you free, but you haven't implemented it. How do I have that, or the customer's saying, I'm on standard now on basic, why should I pay more for business premium? And this comes down to this argument, and everyone's going to argue about the actual values on here. But if you look at the list on the left, that's everything that you're getting in your premium package. So it's starting thinking about, okay, how much is that endpoint totally costing you? Sure, if you look at the Microsoft standard bundle, it's cheaper than the premium, but you need to add to that your email protection. What are you doing as far as email protection? Are you using some hosted email solution, POP or IMAP somewhere? What's the risk of business email compromise? And the cyber insurance guys are sort of like saying that that's the biggest thing they have to pay out on is email compromise back. We have a technology solution that's part of Business Premium, Defender for Office, that we'll talk about next week. Single sign-on. So, I don't want my users constantly bugged with MFA challenges. That's where you use conditional access and single sign-on. So you don't have to do that. We can add some security about, we don't want anybody from Russia or China logging into your machine. So we can just do location-based stuff. And if you do have somebody that goes to China to buy stuff, we'll challenge them. That's the only time that you see an MFA challenge. And that we don't have to go through this thing of changing passwords every month and the rest of it. We give you everything that you've currently got with your AV solution. And if you want to go to the testers of these things, then you'll see that Microsoft Defender is rated equally top in there, but so is everybody else, which speaks more to how they actually test them than anything else. How do you do real world testing? If you're Microsoft, we are the most targeted organization in the world. So our real world testing is real world testing. I read some sort of like stat of it's 100 per minute attempted attacks against Microsoft infrastructure and also emails. You get all the productivity apps, and on the education stuff we were talking about this with the other main player in education. The thing is that, you know, if you're an enterprise or a business, you're using Microsoft applications. So we're giving you those. Your customers and the people that you deal with are probably using Microsoft at home. And the more and more that we see business premier, this is US dollars. So 22 monthly, we're not giving you a discount. So good point. I'll grab these slides directly from Microsoft. Excuse me. Defender for Endpoint compared to Defender for Business. Oh, come on, build out slide. Okay, that looks great. The animation hasn't thrown in there, but as you may be aware, Defender for Business is based on Defender for Endpoint, which has been the enterprise solutions. Defender for Endpoint was recently broken into two. Plan 1, which is simply a centrally managed AV or NGP, and Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, which is the whole capabilities of it. Defender for Business has all those capabilities of Plan 2, except for threat hunting and threat analytics. Why doesn't the Defender for Business have those? Because it's for an SMB, and 6 months data retention is not important for an SMB. If they get breached, they want to be remediated. They don't need to go back and comb through masses of logs to find out how it happened and take learnings from that and all the rest of it. They don't have that complex environment where you need those sort of things. So Defender for Business is tailor-made for SMB is what I'm trying to say there. Resources and next steps. So this is another one of these build slides. So hope this builds out properly. Yes, so far so good. So this is all the resources that Microsoft make available for you. And they talk about some stuff there. Secure Score, which we've covered off in previous webinars. How do you use Secure Score, a compliance score, device score, and break it down and sort of like show value for what you're doing. There are pitch decks available, videos, conduct that workshop. We're happy to come along and present this. The value calculator tool, which I was talking to Rhonda about yesterday, absolutely brilliant. If you want to put together a whole lot of slides around the customer's current situation and where you want to move them to, then there's all the tools there. And I know I've just looked at the time and I've gone over, so sorry guys. Let's flick forward. Okay, upcoming episode. So we're just about to prize time. Rhonda, you've done that in the background. Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so just that one. There's a couple of changes there because of availability of OPC. So we've done that, but I'll make these slides available. One that I'm quite excited about is 6th of July, where we have the NSA on the call. So next week, we're going to be talking about Microsoft Defender for Office 365. And now for the prize draw, Rhonda, go.
Cool. Okay. So there's George Douglas and Craig from Vossa Technology. So I'm not too sure whether those guys have got anything before. Hopefully not.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many?
It's all right. So that is the apron and the coffee cups.
Yeah, if you guys can drop us an email with where you want that stuff delivered to. So the email is onpoint@dicadata.co.nz. On the slide too, there's a couple of links, expression of interest for the neural impact stuff. Some information for me on what you want as far as breakout sessions on training, delivering that training, and subscribing to the Microsoft newsletter. So thank you all that did that last week. So hopefully you've got the latest newsletter with my security blog as well as Rhonda's.
And my blog. Thank you.
So these are the prizes. I will now stop recording. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.